Hey there, and welcome to the Impact Zone podcast. We are back. We are here again to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans. And today I am discussing why it is, partially at least, wrestling gimmicks are much more personal now. There's a lot more of the very specific personality of a lot of the wrestlers nowadays in what, well, we'll call them gimmicks, I guess, but it's not really gimmicks. Like, the best gimmick, again, we've said this for a few years, is you with the volume up. But more than that, it's not just you with the volume up now. I think getting very personal. Look at the Punk Drew Galloway or whatever storyline, whatever. Look at those sorts of things. Look at the Cody arc. Look at the Roman Reigns arc. That was a very personal. It is somewhat has some generic kind of feel to it. You could kind of do that with almost anyone in some sense. Here's this guy, he's got his brothers and his, extended family effectively that are all related. They are a tribe and he is the head of that table. So, you could do that kind of thing. Would it work as well? Maybe not, but that's the thing. Like, it's a very personal. It's not just that's part of the story. There's a lot more layers to it, and that's what makes it, great, because there's a lot of little things that go on, and those things, sometimes you'd think, well, why is this happening now? Why is this, why hasn't there been something brewing under the surface between this and that or whatever? But there kind of has been. Like, with is it Jimmy or is it Jay? I always get confused with which one's which. But that kind of thing has been brewing for a while, and that's what you've got to do. Look, I know that maybe some people don't think that Joe Hendry is that personal, but he really is. Like, this is his personal, character, and this is his personal story. It's very similar. It's very similar to, Cody Rhodes' story in a lot of ways, and perhaps TNA is mimicking in some form or fashion, the Bloodline story right now. But then again, the Bloodline story is effectively, just any babyface story that has a faction with it. The Four Horsemen, the NWO with Sting, the Four Horsemen with Lex Luger, Sting, the Main Event Mafia, I'm about to say the Bullet Club, but I guess the Bullet Club as well. Many iterations of the Bullet Club. A lot of factions are like this, where you just pit baby faces against your heels. And sometimes those heels are in a faction of some sort. I think sometimes there's a few too many factions. I think having one or two factions is fine, because you get faction warfare and whatnot. But when you start going, we're going to have 5 or 6 different factions or whatever, or even more, it starts becoming the waters are really muddy. It's hard to book more than a couple of factions really well, because you need your A and B factions. So you really only need the top 2 for the most part. And then again, factions used to be Four Horsemen, the Fabulous Freebirds, you go up against these guys, this one group That's the one group. That's it. Like, they're the focus, you know. Then you get faction warfare. Well, people have got to be in factions to fight the faction, you know, type thing, which is fine, again. But it's got to sort of come back to that, you know, issue again, I guess, or sort of came up again, where, yes, you can fight in factions against a faction, but the thing is, like, and this mirrors the Cody Rhodes story, you can't have individual success if you don't have, or if you have that faction, because you're fighting a full group. You're not fighting one-on-one, and you can never really fight one-on-one because the faction will get in the way. You know, you can't, you know, so you always have to have your faction there, and then you can't really challenge for a title in a meaningful way, because then, hey, John Cena's there in your faction, or whoever else is in your faction, so you'll all be fighting to get that title. So it will mean that your faction actually isn't all that stable on that side, because if the heel faction is stable and they're okay with the subservience roles, then that's fine, you know, like, that's fine, that works for them, because they're, you know, in that role again. But the baby faces are all in the role of trying to get the title, or the main title, at least in theory, unless you go, okay, well, instead of like getting like singles wrestlers, I'm going to get a tag team, and then I'm going to get one other wrestler, you know, and hopefully that's a lot younger of a wrestler in some ways, because like their aspirations might not be quite ready for, you know, being the world champion. So that might be a logical step to being like, oh, well, I'm going to challenge for the other title, or whatever it is for right now. But, well, I'm coming for that world title too one of these days. But then again, like, that still doesn't make that much sense, you know, like that, unless you sort of have weight limits on things, which I think is a little bit silly and whatnot and all that sort of stuff. I don't think that should be a contributing factor in who should win titles or whatnot. I think it's solely about, you know, drawing power and whatnot, that sort of stuff. But yeah, that's what contributes to drawing power, is that personal connection. And you're not always going to get a wrestler, no matter what you're doing, as far as being personal and real and authentic. And that's the thing, like, this is why you need to be those things. You need to be real, you need to be authentic. Like, people will see through, like, most gimmicks, unless you're really dedicated to them, and unless you put like 1,000% into them, like, or unless it's sort of semi, like, an extension of your personality in some way. Like, look at Rosemary. Like, look at Havoc. Look at Taylor Wilde's second run. Like, look at those runs that they sort of had, because they really put 100% into it, and have really put 100% into that sort of stuff, and have really made that an extension of their personality. Not just, it's there and it exists and, you know, they're doing that or whatever, or it's a, you know, sort of cheesy gimmick. No, they're swinging for the fences and giving it all they've got. Look at something like a lot of stuff that Eric Young did back in the day. A lot of it was like seemingly cheesy gimmicks. Realistically, some of it was somewhat personal, like the Don't Fire Eric stuff, but there was still a lot of cheesy sort of stuff there as well. But he really had himself in that role, and he really gave it his all with whatever he was given, you know, and fans just connected with him because he was authentically him in any kind of role that he was kind of given. Even he let his own personality shine in whatever he was kind of doing. So, like, you can't not be you, realistically, unless you're a great actor. And even then, realistically, even if when you're an actor and you learn this in acting school, you're putting yourself into the role. Realistically, you're thinking about, like, how would I do this? You know, what would I do if this was me? How would I play this? You know, like, if you know, again, if this were me, you know, what's my timing? Why would I say this? that sort of thing. But again, wrestling and wrestling characters, intrigue people, no matter how good at this sort of thing nowadays they are. You're always going to have that surface level of interest, until you can really work people, and it takes a lot of experience to really be able to hone in and get that experience and show people and get people to actually really, really care and invested in you anyway. So unless you can sort of do it and get lucky, but still it usually takes quite a while for it to solidify and to sort of come together and to be a cohesive thing that people will believe in and will cheer for or will boo. It's easy to get booed. You can get cheap heel heat all day, but realistically, you've got to be really good at it, to get really good heat. Just saying a local team sucks isn't good enough. You have to say things that are more deep cutting than that. You've got to say, well, they're never going to win a title, or they're never going, you've got to cut deep. You've got to cut real deep if you're going to go for that cheap stuff, because it's well, they've heard all the generic, your team sucks, this town sucks stuff. So you need to really find, okay, well, what's something that, is more specific that I can say that is not just this town is garbage. This town is garbage because it's filled with, a whole bunch of, I don't know, low rent people or whatever, something, you're trying to find something specific that, or fat out of weight slobs or something, it's still sort of generic, but you're saying something more deep, Chicago's just full of fat slobs or something, whatever it is. You're trying to say something very specific, about a specific area. You eat too much pizza and you're all a bunch of flat slobs or whatever, something like that. You're saying something very specific. In New York, where I'm from, we only eat the thinner pizza, so we're thin, trying to get that, kind of, well, I'm from New York, so they might boo me anyway, so I might as well go with it, type thing. So I might as well go after the pizza, which is something that's a big rivalry between us. So these logical little things of saying, okay, well, how could I get heat, not just a little cheap thing, a little cheap jab out there. I need to go for the juggler as much as what I can with something like this, and just saying, hey, you guys suck, or whatever, isn't gonna get there. You've got to kind of lean into your worst instincts in some ways in that regard, but you still need to do it in a way that's entertaining, because it's this is for entertainment. This is not just me going out there and saying, oh, this town sucks. It's me going out there and riling up the fans so that when my baby face comes out, oh, now we love this guy because he's fighting for us, seemingly, or whatever. So, or beating up the guy that's saying all this bad shit about us or whatever. So at least we like him for that. So, but you've got to make those personal connections, and it really, really takes a lot of effort and whatnot to really do that. And you really need to be out there and on social media and that sort of thing. You really need to get the same sort of energy out there as what you put into what you're doing as a wrestler on TV and whatnot. So, yeah. It takes a lot to sort of, do that sort of stuff, and it takes a sort of a major platform realistically to do this. You can do all the work that you want on the indies, but it doesn't really, translate that well. A few people, really hardcore wrestling fans will know who you are, But until you're on a more major stage, and like again, scouts will find you, whatever, and that's how you make it to the big leagues sometimes. But yeah, you've really got to be able to, showcase that on that big stage or that bigger stage, so that you can get national and international, recognition, so that you can start going, okay, well, maybe AEW will pick me up now, or maybe TNA will pick me up, or whatever, or put me on the roster for a more distinct period of time, or maybe WWE will come calling, but hey, I'm thankful for the opportunity or whatever, and that's fine. You have to understand that there's, this is one of those things that I think a lot of people don't understand in TNA, is that, people come and go, or some people do. Not everyone can stay. And I would like it if more people would stay. But the thing is, that fact that a few people leave every now and again just gives opportunity for other people to actually start going, okay, well, we're going to put more weight on you to do this, because we need somebody to, be the face of this division and carry it until we can, build other people to, be, the face of this division. So, and that's still the same thing, whether you're the face of the division or whether you're like the face of like the company or the brand or whatever else it is. Same thing. So yeah, I think it's really good. Because again, like wrestling nowadays, I even think this is, we talk about like how, like back in the day, they used to say how much, like even doing a little thing would get huge pops back in the day and whatnot. You still get big pops sometimes for just doing little things, if people are connected to you and to your character and to who you are. Look at Joe Hendry's match against Jake Something. Like, just about every single thing that happened in that match got reactions, because they were into Joe Hendry. And that's crazy, So it's great to see that, but it's sort of, something that doesn't come overnight, or whatever. But it is something important that, when we're watching, because that's the end goal of entertainment, like, were you actually really invested, or were you really entertained by it? Like, it doesn't matter if these people leave. Did they do a good job of entertaining you while they were there? Or did they do a good job of, like, elevating themselves? Yes, they did. And that's because they were so great. And, we got to showcase them on our stage and say, hey, we really helped that person get to the next level. Or get recognized, or get noticed, or whatever. And some people, they don't. They just, even if they're getting really big reactions and whatnot, they decide, hey, I'm just going to stay here. It's less travel, or it's less dates, or it's just, I can be a lot more flexible. Maybe it's not as much money, but it's still, something that, gives me a steady income. And it's not like the indies where, again, barely anything really gets outside of a very small, area of wrestling fans. So, but yeah, guys, I hope you guys have enjoyed this one here for today, and I hope you guys will join me again in another one.